Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this new segment on unleashing tech to reach climate neutrality. My name is Paul Adamson, and I will be your moderator for the next 10 minutes or so. This is going to be a very interesting discussion, I'm sure, about new genomic techniques, NGTs in the trade, and their potential contribution to European sustainability goals. And if we have time, we'll also be talking about food security issues as well. I would like to thank Madame Irène Tolleré on my left, who's a member of the European Parliament, as you know, from the Renew Group, for being with us today, and André Guillaume, who's the Vice President and Head of Brand and Community Engagement at Leaps by Bayer, both for being here today. But before we have our discussion, we are going to be watching a very short 45, 50-second video to kind of set the scene about how NGTs can help to meet greenhouse gas reduction targets and ensuring food security. Cue the video, please.
Synthetic fertilizer has transformed agriculture over the last 100 years, but it comes at a cost, and that cost is energy, and that cost is to our environment. Andes is kind of a perfect example of something that's addressing two of the goals very specifically within the EU Green Deal.
We'll be reducing emissions for half a gigaton, which is roughly equivalent to all the emissions that the agricultural sector from Europe does on a year.
Some of this breakthrough science can really advance towards a more sustainable future, both environmentally and also in the world today, knowing that synthetic fertilizer is 2 to 3 times the cost it was a year ago, financially creating a more secure future for the EU as well.
Thank you very much. I see I have a clock in front of me which is ticking away at a very dramatic pace. I can't believe it's already at 46 seconds. That seems to be a bit too high. But we'll see. We have about 8 minutes left. I'm going to turn to you, Madame Tolleré, Irène, to start off with. So in your view, what is the potential of these new genomic techniques, NGTs, in your view, to meet Europe's climate neutrality goal? How can they be used responsibly to deliver on these sustainability targets?
I think that the potential of NBT is huge. We are faced with a lot of different problems and crises at the same time: climate, energy, food security, and we need to find solution quick. So from the start of humanity, man has invented things and then used them to adapt and to develop. I think that the NGTs are part of the solution that we need to develop. However, to develop that solution, we need to set the rules so that, first of all, the European farmers has got a system that thrives and that is not with unfair competition. If we treat NGTs legislatively in a very different manner than what is already been done in other countries. There is a legislation in the UK that is happening, for instance, just now. But also, these tools are so potent that we need to set which part is GMO legislation, which set is not, and really use it at the full potential to find the new solution to adapt to the climate change crisis.
Thank you. I have the same question for you, André, but before you answer it, it's possible to ask the people behind the screens to make a bit less noise. Maybe they think they're not audible, but I can guarantee that they are very audible. So if you just maybe conduct your conversations more quietly or in another room altogether, that way we can all hear ourselves. Thank you very much. So André, the same question to you, my friend. The contribution of NGTs to our sustainable goals.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Paul. I think what's really interesting about that question is actually that you should be looking at what's your starting point, right? And when we look at industries that have negative impact on climate at the moment, then agriculture is clearly part of that range of industries, being accountable for about 10% of greenhouse gas emissions in Europe. But then you also have to see what is the potential in order to change that, right? If you look at transportation, aviation, I think is a good example. We will not come to a place with no matter what technology we have in our hands to make aviation climate positive, right? That's just not going to happen. But agriculture different ballgame, right? I mean, I think even today we see technologies on the horizon, and what we've seen with Andes, which is one of the companies that we have recently invested into, and there's others in our portfolio with Leaps by Bayer, there is clearly the chance to utilize technology and all the land that agriculture is using to really make that a climate positive industry, right? I mean, that's a big goal, obviously, but it can be done. And I think NGTs play a vital role there and need to be explored.
On the back of the Ukraine situation, everybody's much more focused now also on food security in a way that was never the case until now. So Irene, so also NGTs, what is in your judgment the contribution that these techniques can make to our own food security in Europe?
The food security is challenged by the war in Ukraine, but also challenged by the climate change. For instance, the summer season we had very high temperature, and we reached the level of the yields on some crops. And so we know that if we have summers like that, then we have a very big reduction of crops. So if we take the fact that in Ukraine they have plowed less than 50% of the cereal this winter, plus the impact of the crisis, then we know that we are going to have a lot less food produced. So finding the solutions, so that was done by man over centuries, but now with NGTs we can find the new crops quick. And this matter of speed is very, very important, because if there is another summer, we cannot afford to have crops that have a decrease of 50% again. And so it's very important for food security that we give the chance to find the crops that will resist to climate change, to the increase of CO2 in the atmosphere also. So it's very, very important for all of us that we use all the tools that we invent as we develop.
Oh, and to you, André, what is your judgment, the contribution of NGTs to food security?
It's really important. I mean, again, the company we've just seen, Andes, is in the field of developing alternatives for synthetic fertilizers, right? And I think a very recent and timely example is that synthetic fertilizers, which are really, really essential for the production of food in so many regions of the world, many of the raw materials for them are actually being sourced from Ukraine and Russia, and that has led to tremendous price increases recently in that field. Therefore, not only for the sustainability benefit, but also for the food security benefits, we need alternatives, right? And I think this is where technologies such as the one from Andes and others come into play, where there is a sustainability benefit clearly, but also it is an alternative way of bringing nutrients to plants, basically utilizing NGTs, teaching those plants paradigms that we see naturally occurring in other plants, such as peanuts plants, for example, for other crops that are more relevant globally. And I think that is very tangible. Those technologies are being proven in large field trials already. There's a multitude of companies actually working on such technologies, partly even being on the market. So these are very, very real alternatives that could have both benefits in food security and sustainability.
Right. We don't have much time, so maybe my next and last question may be just addressed to Irene. If we have time, I'll pass it to you, André, as well. So there seems to be agreement, at least on this panel, about the huge potential benefits of NGTs. So what are the obstacles to preventing or hindering the deployment of these technologies, Irene, in Europe?
Citizen perception. I think that more and more we are complex problem and very powerful tools to solve these problems. Then they are very apart from what we are able to understand with our normal brain, and so we are the more and more afraid of the solutions we find. And so it's very important that we explain to the citizens that there is no planet B. We need to eat. the 10% of the GES emissions of agriculture is linked to the fact that we eat, so we are alive, thank you. And so it's important that we relate that we have no other option than to find solutions, and that NGTs are part of the solution, as is precision agriculture, as is developing a protein plant for the European Union, as is developing decarbonated fertilizers produced inside the European Union. We need to deliver on concrete solutions in Europe now, and NGTs are really part of the solution.
Thank you. Well, we have run out of time, as I kind of warned you, Andre. I don't know how you did it, both of you, to keep within the short time allotted to us, but thank you so much. We covered quite a lot of ground in a very short time available to us. So my thanks to you when we move on to the next event. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's my pleasure to announce that we now have a networking break, and we welcome you back at 4 o'clock for the innovation pitches. Thanks.